This evening we have a number of commendations for members of our school community with particular accomplishments. And so before we move into our budget hearing this evening, we're going to be recognizing a number of community members. So thank you. I will turn it over. Dr. O'Donnell, are you going to? Yeah.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and get started. We have several commendations, as Ms. Concepcion mentioned. First, Kylie Ahrensberger won the gold medal at the Skills USA State Conference 2022 for early childhood education. Will go on to represent Pennsylvania at the national competition. Kylie's joined by Ms. Jody Ebling, early childhood education instructor and advisor for Skills USA, and Zach Lorber. Mr. Lorber is our culinary arts instructor. So we'd like to congratulate Kylie, and we're going to have you come up front with our board members and get a photo. All right.
Oh, we're all getting in the picture this time, I guess.
You gotta be up front. I can be up front, you won't see you. There you go. How you doing, buddy? I'm awesome. No. Is everybody ready? Yep. Just look right at my camera. Okay.
This is just two. Sorry. So next up, we have congratulations to Pearson Manville for winning the state wrestling title in the 138-pound weight class on March 12th. Pearson is the first state high wrestling champion in 19 years, and he's joined by head coach Ryan Cummins. And from what I was watching him eat a couple weeks ago in the cafeteria, he's probably still at 138. So congratulations, Pearson.
Dan, I can't see you. What's up? For this one? Okay, everybody ready? All right, right here. Go ahead, you got one.
I was going to write that on your You would have kept it. Absolutely.
I'm sitting here next to you.
Yeah.
Here we go, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
So we have the next group we're going to split into two. So the Park Forest Middle School Technology Student Association represented SCASD in exemplary fashion at the recent state competition. They were crowned state champions in 8 STEM events, state runner-ups in 3 events, and third place finishers in 5 events, and top 10 finalists in 13 additional events. So these Park Forest Middle School TSA students have contributed countless hours since the start of their long competitive season. The 16 TSA members that competed in the 2022 state event were Luke Bradbury, Natalie Brandstetter, Yuri Gao, Benny Gulis, Ian Lay, Weston Lenke, Leo Ling, Gabby Meredith, Anthony Olson, Theo Opperman, Marcella Reyes Poro, Esme Shea, Leo Wang, Linda Wang, Emerson Wilson, Melinda Wu. And these students are joined this evening by their advisor, Mr. Timothy DeZerko.
Get them all squeezed in there, but there's another group. Right, we're doing it separate. Why don't you go over there? Why don't you go over there too? Can you guys back up a little bit?
Yeah.
Guys, it's such your stuff.
You look fat.
Yeah, you look great. All right, everybody ready? Yeah.
Chris, you want to send the next group up? Okay, so we're good to go.
Step back here. Everyone? All right. Oh, squeeze it a little bit. Go ahead, Laura. Get on that side, Laura. Okay. Here we go. Everybody ready? Here. Got it. You guys can come up and get pictures. It's fine.
You came and were patient.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
You're fine.
What's that? No, I'll add.
This evening, we have our annual budget hearing first, and then after the budget hearing, which usually doesn't last very long, we adjourn the budget hearing, and then we'll move into our regular board meeting. But we'll be starting with our budget hearing. So for anyone who's here who's interested in making a public comment, we will have public comment on the budget, and then right after that, we'll move into the regular meeting, and there will be our normal public comment time there as well. Okay, so with that, I'd like to call to order the May 16th, 2022 budget hearing of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. And at this time, I'll call on Dr. O'Donnell for introductions, and he'll provide an overview of the meeting. So
Thank you very much.
Dr. O'Donnell.
So with us this evening, we have Mr. Randy Brown and Mrs. Donna Watson, who head up our finance team. They've been collaborating with us throughout the year on budget development for the proposed budget for our 22-23 school year. So this is our final budget proposal presentation, and it also allows for public comment at the end, as Mrs. Concepcion shared. So with that, I'll turn it right over to Randy and Donna, and we'll go ahead and get into it.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Donnell, Ms. Concepcion, and board members. Just want to thank you for all the budget work that we've done this year. Just briefly summarizing, our general fund budget contains expenses related to general operations of the district. It also supports other funds such as debt service, capital reserve, food service, and there is a requirement to have a general fund budget approved by June 30th. We ask that you will be approve that on June 6th in order to set the tax rate and get the tax bills ready for July 1. On January 10th, you approved an accelerated opt-out resolution. What that did is that notified the state and the community that the Act 1 index of 3.4% would not be exceeded when you are setting your tax rate. On May 3rd, you approved a proposed final budget with a 3.4% increase in real estate taxes, and we have that presented for you tonight. I'm not sure why this is doing this, but we'll go down this. Act 1 of 2006 also allows for a homestead farmstead. It provides for tax relief for approved homestead and farmstead properties, which are managed by the Center County Tax Assessment Office. And it provides the amount varies based upon the number of eligible properties and the amount of gambling revenue that the district received. Because we received $371,000 more than in the last year, the relief has increased by $28. Act 1 also limits, as I said, limits the amount of increase that the school district can raise the real estate tax rate. The Act 1 index is 3.4% for this year, and the proposed increase for this year is at that level. Exceptions are available for special ed, but we did not qualify for these exceptions this year. Referendum debt, in 2014, district voters approved the incurrence of $85 million to fund a portion of the State High project. In March of 2015, the district issued that debt. This debt is to be funded through a referendum exception. So in 2015-16 and in 16-17, there were exceptions taken to the Act 1 index, above the Act 1 index, to allow for those debt service payments. This slide shows the general fund activity with the beginning estimated fund balance of $13 million, with local revenue, with total revenue of $177,037,552, primarily funded at the local level. Expenses of $180,273,275, with also some uses of fund balance. Leads us to an ending unassigned fund balance estimated at $14.3 million, which is 7.9% of our expenses, and there is a cap of unassigned fund balance at 8%. Proposed millage for the current millage is 46.0875, a 3.4% increase would take that to 47.6544. This slide shows the blue line is the actual changes in real estate tax rate. The red line is the Act 1 index over the years. And keep in mind that the last 2 years there was no change to the real estate tax rate. This slide shows the impact of the tax rate for various types of properties: residential, commercial, and industrial, and agricultural. And it shows the number of parcels, therefore the average tax, and then the impact of that tax increase. Supplemental property tax rebate program is also a $100,000 budget that allows for a maximum of $650 for a rebate for approved households. Applications are processed on a first-come, first-served basis. And it follows a state program that for eligibility. And there's information there. There's also will be information provided in our tax bills for folks when they receive those in July. We are, as I said, we're primarily locally funded. Budgeted revenue is $8,015,771 greater than in 21-22. Real estate is up $6.6 million, earned income $1,037,000, and realty transfers $300,000. State budgeted revenue is $2.1 million higher. The majority of that is from PSERS and Social Security reimbursement, which is impacted by the costs that we incur for those types of expenses. Basic education subsidy increased by $633,000 between the 2 budget years, and the property tax reduction revenue increased by $371,000. Federal includes almost $1.8 million in COVID relief funds. The slide just shows graphically the local, state, and federal division of or makeup of our revenue. This slide shows the breakdown of local revenue. The largest portion is real estate tax at 76%, but referendum tax is 4%, so a total of referendum and real estate tax is 80% of our local revenue. State revenue, the largest portion is reimbursement for PSERS and FICA, and then basic education at 27%. Federal revenue this year, the majority of our federal revenue is ESSER and COVID grant revenue. Expenses by object, or what we call our true expense definitions, salaries, benefits, and various services, supplies, debt service, charter school expense. Salaries and benefits represent 74% of our budgeted items, and because we're a service organization, that's not surprising. When looking by function, and how we look at function primarily is instruction, support services, capital and debt, referendum debt, and other non-instructional services, as well as a contingency. This chart is one that combines the expense by function and the expense by object. We've talked for many times, our proposed additions include various teachers at different levels, as well as an HVAC technician, talking about virtual academy, mental health services, a recruitment in Title IX compliance position, and also some non-recurring services as far as a teacher, and also some services for and expenses for cybersecurity improvements. Our expenses are up 13 million or 8%. Percentage increase over the 21-22 budget. Personnel, existing staff increased 4.7. Personnel, new staff is 0.6. Capital is 1.9. Other expenses, all other expenses are 0.8 to come up with that 8%. PSERS required contribution to the state retirement plan is approximately 1.9 million of an increase in the budget year. It's approximately 35.26% compared to 34.94% in the current year. Fund balance, we are proposing to use PSERS fund balance of $396,159. Use of fund balance to cover revenue shortfalls is $3,974,900. In addition of $2,513,370 to the capital reserve fund. Projected unassigned fund balance, we said already, is just over 14 million. Committed fund balance graphically just shows that that we had been fairly consistent, and then it had declined the last couple of years, and now going beginning in 1920 during the pandemic, we've been able to set aside some money, but that's because we knew we needed to because of projected shortfalls. This slide shows our committed and unassigned fund balance graphically throughout our projections throughout this year. Our state budget, there are proposed changes that could impact our revenue and expense. The state is required to pass a budget by June 30 as well, as we are. There is a potential reopening of the district budget after the state budget is passed. And if there's any comments and questions, I'm willing to entertain those at this time. We are willing to entertain those at this time. Sorry.
Questions?
No, thank you.
No, just a comment on what you already said, which is that they have to pass their budget and we can reopen, but we really have to pass ours, regardless of what we know or don't know about theirs.
Because they are required, but they don't always meet that June 30 deadline.
We do.
And if we don't at least meet the June 30 deadline, then we don't send tax bills.
Thank you.
Thank you. So since this is a hearing, the intent is to provide an opportunity for public comment on the budget. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment in regard to the budget? Okay. Is there anyone on the Zoom who would like to make a comment in regard to the budget? Donna Korzik, I see your hand raised. If you would like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, then you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi there. My name is Donna Korzik. I live in the borough and I have an 8th grader at Mount Nittany Middle School. I'd like to speak against the proposed tax hike and ask that you consider that inflation is at its highest rate in 40 years and that the average taxpayer will be incurring at a minimum more than $5,000 in additional costs this year alone, resulting in a net loss of income for most, which will be particularly devastating for those on fixed incomes. As a taxpayer and parent, I'd also ask you to, in addition to considering these inflationary pressures, that you consider accountability as well as major drivers in your final decisions, I'd like to just provide a few examples. I wonder why we're always adding more and never considering cutting ineffective offerings. For instance, I'd ask that you take a look at courses like academic literacy at the middle school and provide evidence to us that this course is actually accomplishing anything at all. And if there are other courses like this, which are not achieving their desired purposes, perhaps cut them to make room for these other hires or offerings. Another example of accountability, family and community schedules were upended to accommodate a change to school start times. And I'm wondering if there's any evidence to show benefit to learning. And also, have there been any negative effects? Have you looked or have you asked? One final example that I'd ask you to consider is the implementation of current ongoing issues like the social studies curriculum. This year, my 8th grader was asked to complete a survey in her social studies class in which she was asked about her position on a variety of issues like Planned Parenthood, free birth control, critical race theory, and a single health care payer system without any context at all or explanation. When I asked the teacher to see the resources driving its use, I was told the school district was working on it. I was told the same thing for science last year. I know that the past 2 years have been difficult on everyone. I know that the school district faces many challenges moving forward because of the pandemic. In spite of that, I believe the proposed tax increase is not justified. Thousands of dollars have been spent generating 2 strategic plans that were never implemented. And I just ask that you consider fiscal responsibility and accountability before supporting such a large tax increase. Thank you for your time and your efforts on behalf of our students.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else online who would like to make a public comment? Okay, if you would like to use the raise hand function, if you have a comment to make on the budget. Okay, seeing none, then we will, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn the budget hearing.
So moved. Seconded.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Then we are adjourned. We will move right into our next meeting. And with that, I'd like to call to order the May 24th, 2022 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. If everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us in person, as well as those of us who are those of you who are viewing remotely. I'd like to announce the board held an executive session May 9th and May 2nd regarding personnel. Board members, with an agenda before you, are there any changes to the agenda? At this time, Dr. O'Donnell will review some of the housekeeping items related to our hybrid format.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Concepcion. For our audience this evening, 30 minutes will be provided at the beginning of the meeting for public comment for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business completed or during the next meeting. Each individual will be limited to comments of up to 3 minutes as time permits for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item as required by school code. This approach also allows for comments to be informed by the presentation and board's discussion of the respective item. Since this is a public meeting, we will not permit remarks regarding individual students. If you'd like to share something with our board about an individual student, please email them. During the meeting, the IT help desk is available if those viewing remotely encounter any technical difficulties. You may email our team at itssupport@scasd.org or give them a call at 814-231-7743. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. O'Donnell. At this time, we'll have our roll call of board members present.
Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Vader.
Here.
Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Here.
Dr. Duffy.
Here.
Ms. Huff.
Here.
Ms. Zindi.
Here.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. O'Donnell for the superintendent update portion of the agenda.
You bet, thank you. I'd like to begin with a congratulations to State High Librarian Dr. Kathy Furman on being elected an American Association of School Librarians Director at Large for the 23 through 24 term. She'll take her seat on the association's National Board of Directors during the 2022 American Library Association annual meeting in Washington, D.C. This important leadership role representing school librarians and school libraries nationwide, and we're so proud to have one of our own serving in this capacity. So congratulations and good luck to Kathy. I know she's watching remotely tonight, so nice job, Kathy.
Congratulations.
So secondly, I do have Jean Knaus. I believe CJ is online with us as well. We sent out an update related to the pandemic today to families after we had a meeting earlier today with Health and Safety Team. We'll also be meeting with them again on Thursday. I know our school physician, Dr. Huggins, will likely check in with the board and sharing her thinking. So we wanted to see if there were any questions you had. Obviously, we talked about masking, and if we fully masked, including at every event. That's what the team, if we were going to mask, we'd need to mask everywhere. And it didn't receive support from the team. The pediatrician's concern really has been more geared with the mental health than the impact of COVID on patients they've been working with. Doing so and not changing the behaviors of the community was a concern. But we are looking at it. And what we did share out, because we do want people to know the facts that we're seeing cases, it's mainly home tests, but we're seeing it. And so some students are missing school, and we don't want students to miss school. So we have masks in all of our buildings, and we encourage people to understand and make their decisions if they're going to wear masks or not, and we want to provide a supportive environment for students and employees. Jean, is there anything else that you want to share?
No, Bob, I think that was accurate. Really emphasizing the mental health concern is outweighing.
Go ahead, Jean. I do that.
Now she's not on the panel. Yeah.
She wasn't there before. She was under Curtis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's still there. She just maybe finished her comment.
Okay, so she's off. Okay. So we'll field any questions that board members have.
Okay. I'll open up to the rest of the board first. Questions, comments? Laurel?
Thanks. When we moved after spring break to remove the mandatory masking, one of the reasons I thought that was a good idea was that we seemed to be going down in our cases. And I also felt that then if we saw an uptick, we would be in a better position to say, hey, when it was lower, we didn't mask. Now that it's going up, we are masking. So I'm wondering what type of pattern you would be expecting to see that would lead you to actually reinstate masking.
So right now, we have two different grade levels in two schools where in individual rooms, we are requiring masking, and one of them is a full grade level of an elementary school, and it is really through contact tracing and seeing what we're seeing in those schools. So we have mandated masking in those situations, and that comes with the health and safety team, the nurses included, taking a look at it. And so that's an example in regard to district-wide. I mean, obviously, I'd look to the health and safety team. If the guidance from the CDC is not changing, we'd want to have their advisement to change mitigation. So, and they're involved in these instances as well. So this evening, there is a concert at one of our schools. I know it's not a fan favorite, but anybody in the 5th grade at Spring Creek has to mask to be in the concert tonight. So that's
So for those large group activities, we are asking people to mask?
Just the fifth grade.
Because that's one of the grades that's
Right.
affected, okay. And then the only other question I had was about absenteeism, especially with staff. Have we seen an uptick in that would be affecting?
Yeah, well, Fridays are a bigger challenge right now, and that's something we see this time of year every year with people using personal days. We are seeing COVID impacted attendance. Right now, we're able to cover. It's not an impact to the point where we're not covering classes. But so, yeah, so that's also something that we're watching with employees. And you know, I think putting in masking for somebody who's active in the community isn't going to stop an employee from how they're behaving with their family outside of school. Several employees, when they move around, students, and I was talking with some faculty today in regard to how they manage when they go up and down the aisles with kids, is when they mask when they're in the front of the room, they're unmasked. So that's not everybody, and we haven't mandated that, but.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think as we move forward, I understand that at this time you're not, you know, we've got a week and a half left in the school year. You're not hoping to have the, you know, controversial decision of requiring masks for everyone. But I do wonder, you know, we're going to be in this, you know, potentially for some time to come. You know, we've already seen warnings from the federal level about their concerns about fall and winter of next year. That whether we need to think about communicating to families in terms of, there may be times when you're not, or the district is not deciding that they're mandating everyone to wear a mask, but people might need to be receptive to the idea that there could be times when it is strongly encouraged, or that we might urge masking when we're seeing cases go up. I think a lot of families would be receptive to want to know when it may be prudent to wear a mask. And also that helps, you know, when they have those conversations with their own kids about, hey, you know, the school is really recommending mask wearing. You know, there's plenty of other hygiene and public health issues that we do educate kids and families on. You know, like we've talked a lot about hand washing throughout this entire pandemic as well. I don't think we're going to let off with that. So anyways, I think, you know, just continuing to really try to be clear with people when the risks are going up, that when it is prudent to wear a mask, especially in large indoor gatherings. I think a lot of people in the community look to us for that information because not everybody is following the data on a, you know, weekly basis, as it's now starting to be put out more on a weekly basis than a daily basis. You know, and helping people know they need to be vigilant with testing. And then also understanding, like, now we have another new variant, and that this new variant seems to also be, you know, infecting people who were previously infected with Omicron earlier this year, so that we don't have much protection from prior infections. So that's my comments. Yeah,
So
Corinne?
are you going to recommend it now? Are you going to say we strongly advise? Amber, like she says, in the future, like if it's
Well,
going
I
to
think
be.
these numbers look like a situation in which
So
it would
should
be
we-
advisable, right?
So should we send out a message to parents saying that we strongly advise?
We spoke today, I mean, if the board wants to do a communication, you can, you know, do a communication. We talked about this at length today in regard to what we were advised to do and then how we wanted to make sure everybody had all the information. But yeah, so the board absolutely can. Obviously, we didn't go to that next step.
Okay.
Amy?
Yeah, so forgive me, so this decision was just shared with us just a couple hours ago, so I'm still processing my thoughts and how we talk about functioning moving forward and in the long run. So I agree with much of what Amber said. We don't know everything, but we know that the overwhelming variant currently is the BA2.12.1 is predominant in the Northeast and very likely predominant in our community, and that escapes immunity from both vaccination to some degree and previous infection with Omicron and Delta. So we know we have a variant that's highly infectious and highly transmissible. We know we are seeing an increase in cases in our community. And we know that one of the things that helps limit transmission is wearing a mask. And so my personal perspective is one of 9 and one of 100 and some thousand of this community. But personally, I would think that those 3 facts would lead me to say that it would be prudent and wise, and I would urge people to do the things we know work to prevent transmission. I want to see kids stay in school. I want to see kids get to see the end of this year. We know that being in school is the best thing for kids' mental health. So while I don't discount the importance of mental health problems, recent evidence, in fact, published today in the New York Times, was the conversation that scientists right now are reaching the conclusion that it's unlikely that this will be like flu, that we have one outbreak in the winter, that there is a very high chance that we will continue to have multiple rounds of infection in 1 year, and those may be recurrent reinfection cases. And we don't know what that would mean for the individuals that go through that, what the impacts are on long COVID or other sequelae as a result of repeated infection. So I get concerned when we say, well, people are behaving differently out in the community than they do in our buildings. The only thing we can control is what happens in our buildings. So I don't discount that that's a real problem, and I'm saddened by, frankly, the way I've seen, that there's some perception that there's nothing that can be done. There's a reality that we may need to live with waves of this as the future moves forward, and that means we may have periods where we need to be using mitigation and periods where we can let go of mitigation. And that was what we said when spring break occurred, that was our intent. So those are my thoughts. I don't have a frank determination because, like I said, I was only aware of the decision that was made just shortly ago. But I think having a better sense of how we're going to make those decisions moving forward has to be an ongoing conversation about what the values are and how we think we need to function in our buildings. Yeah.
Well, and I do think the public health education that we can do by urging people to wear masks, that extends beyond our buildings as well.
Yes, I don't disagree.
So that knowledge and understanding of how to protect yourself and others around you, I think people look to us partially for cues on when risks are higher. Deb?
I agree with a lot of what was already said, so just a couple other things. I guess I would say, as the parent of a graduating senior, I personally have chosen to just start masking again in the hopes that my senior doesn't miss out on the end of year activities.
Yep.
And so just people can keep in mind that even if other people around you are not masking, you can wear a good quality mask. And I think that can make a difference to your family. So if that's of concern to you and your family, then you might want to make your own decision to mask. And that, I think that can make a difference. So, thanks.
Yeah, but I think what you said about strongly when you send out an email to everyone, because not everybody does follow it, and there is peer pressure. If people are not wearing a mask, then you're not going to wear a mask regardless of what you tell your kids. So, but I think if we send out a strong message that we strongly suggest that this should be done, I think it'll most likely be followed. At least we'll hope so.
So I think it's about building norms that we
Right.
live with for the next few years
Exactly.
as this pandemic continues. Dan?
Yeah, I think I follow and agree with the comments we made up to this point. We're really this is a difficult decision because we've been following this kind of binary approach to it, on or off. We either have masks or we don't. Either we do mitigation or we don't. Or everybody's on board or nobody at all. I think we need to get a little more refined in our approach to these, to this disease and to the ways in which it can recur in new and previously untested forms. I think to the extent, I think if we put our minds to it, and over the coming months, if we can work out some understanding of the way this disease operates and work up some criteria for deciding when we can confidently inform the community that we're in a period of risk, where we're asking families to voluntarily support mitigation and ask them to step forward, and we provide leadership in that way, I think that may in fact generate more support than using making a uniform mandate which requires compliance from everyone, but creates such conflict and such a sense that the imposition kind of argues against the intervention. I just think we need to give us some, I think, with some study about the criteria for offering this kind of feedback, offering to the community, and ways in which we can communicate it effectively, and plan to use it routinely as needed. I think these ideas all make sense to me, at least. So anyway, but it's, we've been no one wants the CAP to keep doing this, but I think, as Amy just suggested, there's a really decent chance we're going to be in this pickle over and over again in various ways.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Laurel?
I just wanted to piggyback on what's been said in that when we had our last work session with the health and safety team, one of my big questions, and for those who didn't sit around watching that meeting, at first we had heard that we wear a mask to protect the other person and they protect us. And I said, well, what's changed that you're now saying wear it, what's different? And they said that it's the quality of the mask, and exactly what Deb was saying, that we can protect ourselves. And so I think to the extent that there are, as you said, people who don't maybe follow as closely, and they're looking to the school district to say, hey, we're noticing an uptick. We know that even if it doesn't 100% prevent it, it reduces transmission overall. And so we wanted to let you know that this is the general advice, and we would urge you to do it. I think that would be a good message for us to send out.
Yeah, I mean, because I think as an educational institution, it's a part of our mission to make sure that we're educating people on health issues as well. I mean, clearly we do that. We encourage our kids to wash their hands and many other mitigation measures. And this is, I don't want to say, use the words like the new normal has become very cliche, but unfortunately these ups and downs are here to stay. So, yeah. All right.
I would request a motion from the board, because I've heard some different things and didn't hear from everybody as well. If you're going to give me some direction on this, I thought we sent out a lot of information today. Specifically, what are you asking me to do?
I can make that motion if you want.
Okay.
We can do that with the way the agenda's working.
When we don't have this item on the agenda is,
I don't view it as a issue that is, it's not de minimis in the sense of it's a significant issue without question, but it's de minimis in the sense that it's not a cost issue for the district. So I don't see that.
It's the sense of the board for direction to the administration.
Well, yeah, certainly something of that nature that you'd like the administration to go in a certain direction. I don't have an issue with that being added.
I'd like to move that we follow up that the district follow up today's email to parents with a reminder of the benefits in reducing transmission of wearing masks as often as possible, especially indoors and in crowded situations. That's my move.
And could I add to it, because we're on an uptick now?
Because of the change in
Yes.
the uptick in the number of cases we're seeing in the schools specifically.
could I suggest that perhaps some specific information that it seems that we're looking at a new variant right now?
Certainly.
I think it's easy to find clear information on
I'll
that.
accept that as a friendly amendment, I guess.
Yeah, the process is a little wonky, but we're there.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded, so we can have discussion around that motion.
I feel like we're kind of
I think we had the discussion. Yeah. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? I see we have a list of attendees here. If you'd like to make a public comment, you could raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom. Okay, I do not see anyone looking to make a public comment, so we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Dr. Duffy,
Yes.
Ms. Huff,
No.
Ms. Sidney,
Yes.
Dr. Anderson,
Yes.
Dr. Bader,
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion. I'm
Yes.
sorry,
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Buck,
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion,
Yes.
Dr. Crevecoeur.
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. So we're still on the superintendent update portion of the agenda.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. The legislative update, Jackie?
Sure, so I just have a few items. First one is that Dr. Duffy and I attended the Central Intermediate Unit 10, I wrote the same thing twice, the CIU 10 legislative breakfast last week. Carrie Benninghoff, Senator Langerhalk, and Senator Dush, as well as a representative from Stephanie Borowitz, were all in attendance. And as a panel, the legislators spoke to and listened to our comments about staffing shortages, CTE funding, and charter school reform, funding reform. There were some really excellent ideas concerning staffing and charter reform, and hopefully this discussion will continue at our legislative breakfast on Friday. Just as a note, Senator Langerhalk and Senator Dush will be representing SCASD once the new Pennsylvania Senate maps take effect, assuming they hold on to their seats. And I've contacted both senators' offices to introduce them to SCASD and hopefully start building a good working relationship with them. And maybe we can even get them to come tour.
That'd be great.
They've been receptive, but there's an election on Tuesday, which is another item. There's an election tomorrow, everyone. So please remember to vote. Polls are open from 7 to 7, I believe.
7 to 8.
7 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
right.
I should know I'm working
That's
the
all be
poll,
there.
but they don't let me go home till like 10, so that's all I know. All right. I also wanted to let you all know that Representative Scott Conklin is now co-sponsoring House Bill 2468. Who do we appreciate? Mental health. So it is a bill that allows or sends money to school districts to address mental health needs of students. And unlike many of the other bills that have recently been passed out of committee, this bill would provide funding to every district with a pretty high degree of flexibility to be spent however we see fit concerning mental health of students. And so many districts like ours will be really impacted by this. And the flexibility is really key here because, as we know, we've been cobbling together mental health services for students in whatever way we can. And there's no one fit for everyone. And so giving all the districts that flexibility is really key. And so I'm really, really grateful that Representative Conklin listened to Peter and Gretchen and myself on this matter and has co-sponsored this bill. That's actually it. That's all I have. Go vote tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. Peter, do you have a COG update?
Yeah, I just have a really brief update on the solar power purchase agreement. So I just gave a presentation to the State College Borough on that. So right now, just like we will later tonight, other entities are deciding the range of electricity that will go into that. Last week, though, Half Moon Township voted 3-2 to, I guess, no longer participate. So they refused to provide any band of electricity for the aggregated range, despite Joe Vigalone's best efforts to say, well, you've already committed yourself to $150 to spend to get something that you could get, and they did not find this persuasive. So I guess Half Moon will leave. They are the smallest electricity purchaser in the group, so in that aggregate, it won't really do very much, but their citizens may not be very happy with that. That's all.
Okay, thank you for the update. At this time, we have time for public comment. Each individual is limited to up to 3 minutes as time permits for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item. Is there anyone here in the room who would like to make a public comment? Yes, if you would like to come up to the lectern, and you can tell us your name and where you reside in the district, and then you'll have 3 minutes. And I will go ahead and open public comment to everyone on Zoom after in a few minutes. So, yes.
Hi, I'm Ari and I reside in Boalsburg, PA, in Harris Township. I want to say thank you to Bob for everything that you've done so far this year. We all are going to really miss you. And also, I hope we can, I would like us to try and do a mask mandate in the high school if possible, instead of this optional masking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Ari.
your comments.
I'll miss you too.
Is there anyone else here who would like to make a public comment? Okay. Is there anyone on the Zoom who would like to make a public comment? You can raise your hand using the raise hand function. Okay. Seeing none, then we'll go on to routine approvals. If we could have a motion to approve the routine approval listing as presented on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on the routine approvals?
I had just a quick question in 5H. It was about the IT, about the laptops with the new employees, not to exceed 12,000. How many employees are we talking about for laptops of 12,000? Like, do we know, or is it just kind of a guess?
That's the CDW laptop, so it's a little different.
And the question is?
Yeah, how many employees are we talking about? Like, is it just kind of a guesstimate that you just don't want to exceed 12,400?
We've been bringing these to you as we have requests for them.
Right.
And I know that there's several new employees that need laptops. I'm guessing this is probably 5 or 6.
All right. It's just that you're right, you have been bringing those up to us, and it just occurred to me that I just never know how many employees we're talking about when this occurs, and I just don't know the cost of the computers.
Right.
So I figured this time I'll just ask about it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions on routine? Deb?
There's just a typo on the minutes in 5E. It was the board work session on strategic priorities, but under call to order, it calls it a work session on solar power.
Oops. Oh, thank you.
But the title is right, so I
Yeah.
don't think it would be super confusing.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good catch.
We're sending a gold star.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
You used to say in the bank. Good catch.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else on routine approvals? Okay. All right, we will have well, first I'll open it up to public comment. Any public comment? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Huff.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
That has passed.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Paul Brigman. He's with us, the new Spring Creek Elementary School principal. Paul, thanks so much for all you've done at the high school and our counseling world, as well as at Park Forest Middle School this year as assistant principal. So congratulations.
Thank you and congratulations. We're excited to have you join our elementary principal team. So, thank you. Okay. Then our first action item, item A, is a motion to approve the 2022-2023 appointment of an architect for routine projects. This is shown in attachment 6A.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on that item? Okay. Peter?
Thank you for a very thorough memo.
It's going to be like, it's one of these questions. It's the same question. It's always the same question. Can you just tell us about this firm's acquaintance with preparing documents that might have to do?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, sorry. Are you able to tell us about this firm's qualifications and experience related to doing things that might be associated with green building and anything like that?
I can tell you that most of my interactions in the past 9-10 months now have been with more on the MEP side, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, because that's most of the projects we've been kind of working on. I've been impressed with them as far as, and I push them as well as far as efficiencies go. So, and they've been very receptive and have a lot of feedback in that regard.
Okay.
So from an architectural standpoint, I haven't had a lot of experience with the group from that side yet.
Right, but they help you prepare things, right?
Oh, yes.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, I just.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Other questions on this item? Okay. All right, is there any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Okay, that item has been approved. Item B is a motion to approve the bids for the roof replacement at Grays Woods Elementary School, shown in attachment 6B.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Peter?
Can it be a solar-ready roof?
It's a shingled roof with decking will be solid, so it could be, yes.
Great.
Okay. All right, Laurel, did you have a hand raised?
Yeah, mine is just a suggestion, since this is one of those things that people notice as they drive by it, and one of the issues that people have sometimes brought up over the years in the school district is, why don't you maintain your buildings? And this is a real example of us, it's not falling apart, we're keeping it up, and any signage or anything that could indicate to people that we're doing our due diligence with doing that, I think would be a nice public service to them to be able to see.
Sure. That's a great suggestion.
That's not much of a drive-by kind of school, though.
Yeah, but people wander by, it's more just the idea.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether the cooling tower that's coming next is something people can see from the outside or not. So
Right.
I figured I'd just get it in now. Roofs people see.
Any other discussion here? All right. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Item C is a motion to approve the replacement of the cooling tower coil at Spring Creek Elementary School as shown in attachment 6C.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on this item? Okay, any public comment? All right, we will have a roll call vote then.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Item D is a motion to approve the refurbishment of the walk-in cooler and freezer at Mount Nittany Middle School as shown in attachment 6D.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Any public comment? All right, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Item E is a motion to authorize the inclusion of a power band, meaning a range, of 60% to 85% of electric usage for the RFP for the SPPA working group as shown in attachment 6E.
So moved.
Seconded.
That's been moved and seconded.
It's got SPPA and stereo.
Questions or discussion on this item? We had a work session on this last week, and that was on video, so I think people can watch the work session if they would like more information about how we came to discuss, what numbers might be reasonable, and that why we might include a range. We're not just looking to provide a single number, we're looking to provide a range that we'll get, basically, we're going to get quotes for how much we could pay for electricity in terms of a rate, which could vary depending on how much we're purchasing, so. And that's why we're providing a whole range of potential purchase points. Correct. Yes.
And each municipality generates or offers their own estimate about their use of the participation. And we're offering that as our estimate at this point in terms of our probable, or at least anticipated participation in the agreement.
So the next step with this, and Peter, let me know if I'm correct, it's Green Sky is going to take these ranges that each of the participating entities provides, and they will be putting together an RFP for the purchase.
That's correct. So the 14, it looks like the 14 participating entities those will all get the bottom and the top, right? And so that provides a range that will go out, and then the developers and retailers who manage these power purchase agreements will look at those and then provide us with potential projects that we could purchase with different term lengths so that we can determine the project, whether or not we want to do the project. And so everyone gets to, the district is the largest electricity purchaser. So we're saying this is what the elephant is doing, ride the elephant.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right.
thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Okay. Any public comment on this item? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Ms. Huff.
Yes.
Ms. Zinni.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
I didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
That's okay.
I know. I understand. Okay, item F is a motion to approve a contract with Templeton Advantage LLC for superintendent search services, and this is shown in attachment 6F.
So moved.
Seconded.
Great. That has been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion around this item? Any public comment? Okay,
Well,
Dan, yeah.
I think just
Yeah, I
to
think we
mention
should-
to the community that we had an opportunity to review a number of proposals, but 4 individual providers participated in either Zoom interviews with us or in-person interviews. And they really represented different forms of the same kind of service, but they varied. And this was the one that stood out as being closest to what our needs are, and maybe to some extent having a history with the district as well, which indicated their capacity or their ability to really understand our community and its needs in terms of this kind of work.
Yeah, I think the community engagement that was offered by this firm was, something that we were impressed with their approach on that as well.
Yep, and their follow-up too, once the decision is made, their offer of additional support services beyond that to assist with the transition with the new appointment, I think was a valuable asset to what they had to offer.
I agree. Okay. Any other comments? Yeah, thank you, Dan. That was a good idea to sum up that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any public comment? Okay, we will have a roll call vote then.
Dr.
It's okay. Starting with doctor is a good bet.
I think I'm next.
So, Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Ms. Huff.
Yes.
Ms. Zinni.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That item has passed. Item G is a motion to approve Mr. Curtis Johnson as interim superintendent for the period June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023, and this is shown in attachment 6G.
So moved.
Second. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We can have some discussion around this, but I think what I would want to say is really sincere thanks and gratitude to Curtis Johnson for being willing to fill this role and for his service to the district over many years, as well as what we know will be, a challenging transition period, and his commitment is really appreciated.
Yeah, and even though it will be, I have faith that he and our other administrative team members will be able to steward us through
Definitely.
that period of time. And we're grateful that we have that capacity right now, so that we can be diligent and careful about our selection for the next appointment for superintendent. So it's good to have that confidence in the team so that we can be certain that whoever we appoint to steward the district moving forward will be the right fit for our community.
Yeah, I think we're just really fortunate to have a strong team in place in our administration as we go forward. Any other comments?
I think it's been said.
Yeah. Any public comment from the community? Okay. All right, we will have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Huff.
Yes.
Ms. Sidney.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Jeffries.
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed.
Congratulations,
And
Curtis.
congratulations, Curtis, and thank you. Okay, moving on to information discussion. Item A is revised and new policies 103, 103.1, and 103.2. These are Title IX policies, and these are shown in attachment 7A. And so with that, I will call on Linda Pierce to come to the table, and she'll be presenting these revised and new policies. She's been working hard for months now with a Title IX expert to get us where we need to be with these. So, thank you, Linda.
Thank you. So a very wise man once told me, if you stick around long enough, what you recommended 20 years ago will again come back. It didn't take 20 years. When we wrote what we currently have for 103 and 104, that was in accordance with the regulations that were in place when we did them in 2019. Regulations have changed, and they were talking about changing them again. But we've got to get this in place to be compliant, just in case they don't change the regulations again. So what we have been advised is that, well, what I preferred was the policy which you see as 103, which just it's kind of like 100.1. It's an umbrella policy saying this is what we expect. This is the behavior we want to see. And it covers both the discrimination, bullying type of actions, as well as the Title IX sexual harassment type of actions. So then we have Title IX in 103.1, and we have the discrimination and discriminatory harassment in 103.2. It is what our attorneys gave us. Aside from some intro, I believe, in one of them. I forget which one I wrote. But for the most part, it's what our attorneys gave us. The Policy Development Committee has looked at these twice and decided it was time for you all to take a look at it.
And the policy committee's done a lot of work going through these over the past few months. So.
They were a lot more difficult to read when the Policy Development Committee got them. They had all the strikeouts and add-ins.
Right? Yep. Laurel?
I was actually going to ask in the future, I got to it too late to ask today, but if those copies could be attached somewhere, since it helps me to see some of those strikeouts. I know it's a lot of work.
And I generally, as you
That's what I
know,
thought. That's
present
why I
them
was
that way.
This one I didn't want to see that way. Okay.
Like everything was struck out and everything, like.
That's why I was so
it
surprised not to see
Yeah.
it, but I didn't, it was too late to call and say something
Yeah.
about it. And I did actually have one question as well. on 103.1, not the regulation, but the policy has your name in it, as in contact you.
Yes, that I'm told by the attorneys,
They
it
have to
has
say
to
that.
have my name.
So then,
So if I ever leave, you're going to have to revise the policy.
okay, I just wanted to check, because I know Dr. Edder's always telling us, keep
I,
these.
trust me,
I
that,
take
that
your
was
word
not,
for it.
that was
Okay.
not in there in the 2019 iteration.
Okay. Thanks for explaining it, that's all.
And Laurel, as I'm looking through that too, it does have Linda's name and her contact information, but above that, under that, the heading for that, what's in that section, it does say the board designates the Human Resources Director. So I think it would follow pretty clearly that Linda's successor in that role, even if not named, would be the
Doesn't
person.
have to change their name to match them.
Well, I think that we would update it when that person is, but I don't see that as a fatal flaw in if it
In a-
takes us
in a
3
tr-
months to make that
Yeah.
change in the policy.
In a transition period. yeah.
Right.
And who knows what the
I was just
regulations will be
surprised.
then.
Right.
So what I would like to do, and I apologize, Laurel, since this is something we've been working on for so long, is to bring it back at the next meeting for you all to look at as an action item.
These things that are pretty much required, I feel less strongly about getting that time, because even if people object, we could object, but, it's more when other things that I feel.
I got you.
But
All right.
thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, so the next item under information discussion is the 22-23 budget development update, shown in attachment 7B, on which Randy Brown is going to, and Donna Watson will be coming to the table to discuss with us. So thank you.
Sorry, get connected here quickly. We just have a couple things that are new, were new at the Finance Committee meeting, and we just wanted to share them with the full board. It'll take just a minute or two here. Yeah, all right. So since the May 3rd meeting, we updated the property tax reduction allocation. We talked about that during the budget hearing. Charter school expense and cohort real estate tax rates, just as a point of comparison. Thank you. Again, the allocation is now 1.8 million, or just under 1.8 million, and it is 370,000 greater than proposed in the budget earlier. It increases the exclusion by $28. Again, this is a summary you've seen. Just wanted to spend a couple minutes looking at charter school expenses. We do have a fairly significant dollar increase in our budget for charter school expenses. However, we are not projecting any additional students. That's just because of a rate change, which is, the rate is a function of our budget. So if we have more students, then we will have even more expenses. Then there's different slides here that show a cost per student for regular education and also special education student. Total number of students, regular education and special education students. And then we have brick and mortar broken down by the type of student, cyber by the type of student. Then looking at our county cohorts, real estate taxes, our proposed final increase is at 3.4%. The others in their preliminary proposed final budgets are at 7.1, 2.1, and 3.3. And looking at a 5-year average, ours is at 1.5%, and the others range a little bit more significantly. Again, those numbers for any of the other schools here that we're presenting may not be their final budget either. They may have had something in their proposed final that is different from their final. Cohort real estate taxes, just looking at our 6 other districts, many of those are at the Act 1 index, and some are, it looks like even one is above the Act 1 index in their proposed final budget. We'll be interested in seeing what their final real estate tax increase is and comparing our 5-year averages as well. So again, thank you for your time, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mrs. Watson and all of her crew. We could not do this together without the staff that she has and all of the endless hours of work that Donna helps to support us all. June 6th is when we're asking you to adopt the final budget. Any questions?
No, I really appreciate the cohort district and the local district proposed. This is the first time you've given us something like that, and I think it's really helpful for the community to see. I've seen anecdotally in the state media a variety of other districts, Erie, several others, all at the Act 1 index rate. And I think what's understandably sometimes difficult for community members to understand about funding of school districts is that there's a very small hole in this needle that we have to thread every single year. Staff cannot, just like our community has to deal with inflation, so does our staff, because they make up a big part of the community. We're one of the larger employers in the community. And so they need to have raises annually. So therefore, our costs can never stay stagnant. So the I understand why so many in the community frequently feel like, well, cuts have to be made or other things. I mean, just to maintain the status quo frequently entails a tax increase at various points in time in order to fund the personnel costs that we have, because as you've shared many, many times in our pie chart, that's the majority of our costs. So between the escalation in healthcare costs and the need to give cost of living raises to our staff, a school district can never function on the same dollar figure year in and year out. So that's just the nature of the way things are. And unfortunately, with the needs that we're facing, that we need to meet for our students, that creates additional needs within our budget. So, and clearly what's happening around the state is reflected in that same situation in all these other school districts that many are facing the need to go to the full Act 1 index. So I do want the community to understand we are very cognizant of the impacts of inflation. And we know our staff and community are all, dealing with those impacts. But we also need to meet the needs of kids, so.
And I know to a great extent, these cost of living increases are contractually required.
Correct.
So, it's not something that we make a decision on a year-to-year basis.
And on a related note about our budget, the last 2 years, we have not made the transfer to capital that we typically had been expecting to do because of budgetary uncertainty. And that allowed us to not increase taxes for 2 years. We are looking in this 22-23 budget year cycle to reinstitute that, and that is very important. And obviously, we expect to have work on that shows that in the next year.
Thanks, Randy. I was thinking about bringing it up in the earlier presentation during the budget hearing, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because we did have to because of the fact that we were at a zero increase status, and we were still anticipating costs associated with our personnel contracts and so on. We had to tighten our belts in some way, and we stepped back from the pattern of investment through our capital reserve in order to do that. But we're this year able to build in that contribution to capital reserve to keep us a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of anticipating future needs, particularly income. When we talk about the renovation or whatever with the project of Park Forest Middle School, that's been one of the big topics we've talked about in the past. So I think that contribution to the capital reserve fund is really crucial.
And the one thing we've
in
learned,
this cycle.
And to your point, the one thing we've learned over this recent period is that projects deferred result in increasing costs. So not only are we facing, we understand the community is facing escalation, but with supply chain issues on top of inflation, the longer we defer physical plant issues, the more it's going to cost us down the road as well. So we're trying, while it may seem hurtful, it's important that we return to that capital reserve savings, because if we don't, and we postpone the project an extended period, we could face much bigger costs in waiting.
And things pile up then.
Right. Yeah, like as tonight's agenda clearly proves, freezers, roofs,
Well, it not only piles up, I mean, from just putting together what Amy, Dan, and Randy all said, I was sitting here thinking back to when Ed was here and him getting the district back on a cycle so that every year money would go into capital reserve so that the school district would not end up in a situation like it was in where many of the buildings all needed to be renovated or replaced simultaneously. And that really, really is a situation that we don't want to get ourselves into again. And so even though it's hard to swallow, I was pleased to see that we're doing that again this year after taking a sort of COVID pause, because it's really important. And as somebody else mentioned, we have Park Forest Middle coming up, and there's obviously a need there, and anybody who's been there lately knows that, so, yeah.
Donna, did we miss anything else? Is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah, and I did, adding on to what Amy had mentioned about, the cost of staffing, something that in the terms of the big picture of how we fund public education, we're facing over the next decade real shortages in terms of professional teaching staff because fewer people are going into education. The number of graduates coming out of, teaching preparation programs in colleges and universities has decreased. So we're going to be seeing over time, the next decade, some significant labor market issues that are going to affect, what needs to be, what people need to be paid to incentivize them to come into this profession. So you're not going to have, a pipeline of people coming into a profession unless we're, investing in it, so.
Yeah, and didn't one of our board members share with each of us we've had more emergency certs than we've had new
Right.
teachers
Yeah.
enter the profession this year
There was
in the state?
Somebody out of the Department of Education faculty on campus shared a chart basically that said that we're more reliant now on emergency certification for new employment than those are professionally certified out of training programs. We're having that statewide. It used to be that we had many more graduates in certification programs than the state really needed, but that's dropped. That proportion has dropped significantly. This was a topic of conversation during the legislative breakfast, by the way, with the state senators and representatives that were there. It was interesting to hear. This is off topic.
No, it's okay.
But what was interesting was to hear their perception of things, which were one of the ideas that came forward was, well, years ago we were producing more than we needed. Why can't we just have those people that we trained earlier come back and work for us now?
Right.
Yeah, maybe they took a different path in their lives.
Where are they now?
Maybe they found something that paid some better, maybe than the ones.
Probably had kids and they're.
Exactly. That was one of the comments that was made. It was interesting, very, very practical in terms of some of the ideas that came forward.
I do think it is going to be, so to the point of the budget,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, our tougher years are ahead of us, so you're right. The team here really, the moving parts on this with all the facility issues we've had over time and trying to make this work as well as, dealing with all the personnel, we are mostly people, our costs, like you said earlier. So thanks for all the moving parts behind the scenes with supporting programs as well as, helping to update some facilities. I know we have others to work on in the future, so good points. And we'll come back, I think in 2 weeks, this Friday, we meet with legislators, so we can talk about that transfer portal that needs to improve.
Yeah,
Right. More flexibility for emergency services.
You bet.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Oh, Peter.
Yeah, I just had a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for pulling out the data on the charter schools and the cyber charters, which I had asked for. So we have this $6.8 million piece of our budget. That is that's getting close to the budget of, say, Harris Township, right? And imagine if Harris Township, as an entity where Boalsburg is, had very little oversight of its budget by the public, no elected board, right, of representatives, to deal with it and fewer avenues for transparency. And I just think that, you know, I just want to make that point for, I think, the third meeting in a row or so, that we really kind of face it's tremendously unfair, and the legislation, as Jackie knows, as many of you know, just really is stacked against us. And I just appreciate you giving us this information so that we can understand where our money is going and where we don't totally understand where our money is going. Sure. Thank you very much, Randy.
Yep, thank you. Okay. So the next item is also one that Mr. Brown is going to be updating us. The school facility capacity update. That process is described in attachment 7C.
So this is just really quick. I don't have a lot of information to share. I just felt in talking with board leadership that it is something that we should put on an agenda. Unfortunately, you know, my team and I have not been able to prioritize reviewing the RFP results, but we hope to do so in the next week or two, and we'll be involving Ms. Brandt in an interview process, hopefully, so that we can have an update for you sometime in June in action then. There were 2 respondents, and both firms we've been communicating with and letting them know that we haven't forgotten, and it's not that we're not interested in working with them, and I believe that they're both still interested in working with us as well. All right?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, moving on to board reports. We have committee reports. Deb, would you like to provide an update from Finance and Audit?
Sure. We've already talked about most of what we talked about, which was the budget. But 2 other items, the foundation board fundraising proposal came back again, and we had Ms. Frisco and Mr. Olivet there to talk about their ideas. And so I think we'll be bringing something to the board soon-ish. But it might have one more time in the Finance Committee. And then there was an update. We have been provided some information about a possible refunding opportunity, and as the interest rates have been rising and other things going on, there is a lot of complexity in the situation, and there's not as much potential for savings. So the recommendation from staff, which the Finance Committee agreed with, was to just kind of table that and watch and wait for more traditional refunding opportunities when they are, excuse me, regularly available in December of 2024. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay. So upcoming meetings, we have Culture, Climate, and Learning Committee on the 31st, and Facilities and Grounds on June 1st. Then moving on to board reports. Oh, I'm sorry.
We had to cancel the meeting this week.
For communications.
For communications, and I did have something I wanted to say related to that, since we weren't able to talk about that. I just wanted, as a reminder, to remind people that next Monday, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the high school cafeteria, we're going to be having a community forum where anyone in the community can share ideas and feedback on our strategic planning process, which goes to, we were talking earlier about what needs we have and look ahead and how we juggle those things. There was an email that went out on Friday with a link to a registration form, and I assume there will probably be a follow-up this week, just reminding people again, since we get so many emails, if they need that form. In addition, this week on Thursday and Friday, a steering committee is going to get started with that work. Like all of our meetings, that's an open meeting if people want to observe it. And then that will be the stuff that then comes to, I believe, the community forum next Monday.
That'll be my understanding. Okay. And yeah, so I think for the purposes of us knowing how many people are going to be attending, if people can register ahead of time,
yeah,
that'll be helpful.
And then there will be another one, I don't think we've set the date yet, in June, at least one other community forum coming up.
Yeah, we talked about having a virtual format
but we don't have a date.
in the future.
And then we will have communications on, I think, the 7th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. I think, yeah, I wasn't sure if we had nailed down the date for communications or not, but hopefully.
I have it
yes.
as a whole, so.
Great. Okay.
We'll have a board meeting before then.
Yes, we will. Okay, so Central Intermediate Unit, Dan?
We have we had the legislative breakfast. That was the main topic. The next board meeting isn't for another 2 weeks. But I think Jackie's earlier summary of the legislative breakfast was a major accomplishment by the intermediate unit in the recent past.
And is that the first time that event has been held?
And during my tenure on the IU board, it's the very first one. But it really, I think it really deserves renewal every year, revisiting every year. It covers 3 counties, and you have legislative representatives from, in a sense, with a larger footprint in both the House and the Senate. And we could afford to bring in more member districts and member district school board members to participate in this. There's a lot of room for growth in this activity. So, but it was really a really helpful, productive meeting. One of our past district employees, Jackie Martin, who's now a superintendent at Keystone Central, provided, among those who spoke out, she provided a lot of leadership in terms of understanding the needs of the CTEs, the tech centers, and employment issues, and so on. So there was a wide-ranging discussion of currently important information to which the legislators responded. So it was really helpful.
Great, yeah, that's exciting to have that momentum going forward for that kind of engagement and advocacy work. SCASD Education Foundation Liaison Report, that is me. We already talked about that fundraising campaign documents that were brought to the Finance Committee, and we'll be continuing to work on that. The main thing, to remind everyone, the Maroon and Gray dinner is this weekend on Saturday evening. And so that's an opportunity to celebrate a lot of alumni from our district who have been distinguished in some way. We've got some really amazing alumni and people, not both student alumni and professional staff, alumni as well of the district. And so that should be a really great evening, and just a lot of appreciation to the Ed Foundation board members who have put a lot of work into organizing that event.
And I think it's important to acknowledge the activities fund or the classroom support fund in the name of Marty McDonough.
Yes.
That is the theme for the dinner. So any contributions will go towards that fund, which benefits the opportunities for the students in our school district at the classroom level.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've had some meetings with the Ed Foundation board. We did have had some receptions where they've been able to talk about some of the work that is made possible by that, and it's really, they're making a significant difference for families in our community.
It's really inspiring, actually, to see the good that work does and those contributions do.
So in addition to alums that are being honored for the Maroon and Gray Society, I think a couple of you know Rudy Burris will be in town, longtime paraprofessional basketball coach for us, so
That's
he'll be
right.
honored and inducted. So I just wanted to share that with the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point. I think that's
Wonderful that he's able to be here.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a video of his playing kind of a street basketball game with Josh Shapiro.
Oh, really? In Philly?
It's a Facebook thing, but it was really interesting. There's a game called Horse, where the first one takes a shot, and the other has to match it. Well, I'm sorry to waste our time with this, but there's one instance where Rudy, in terms of the second shot, sits down on the ground and maybe at the foul line and takes a shot and challenges his opponent to do the same. It was really fun. There was a lot of people in the audience, of course.
That's very cool.
It was like a performance. It was really cool.
Awesome.
Oh, and people who don't know this, Rudy was a member of the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, yes.
And was wearing his Trotters uniform when he was in this competition. So it was kind of cool.
Oh, very cool. Okay. The CTC Local Advisory Committee, Carlene?
No, we haven't had a meeting for that yet.
Okay, so moving on to the CAC reports, athletics.
We're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow, but it was
Postponed.
canceled,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, due to some athletic competitions that are occurring then. facilities, Gretchen?
Yeah, I attended this one, and the two main things that we talked about were, this was right when the CO2 monitors were planning on being installed, and just talking about what happens next. That's great that that's happening, and then is that permanent? Is that temporary? Some of those are rented if the particular facility isn't already has it built into the system. So Mike Fisher basically said, this is a start, and then we'll proceed from there, which sounded very promising, and like we're making progress there, because obviously if we can have the CO2 and air exchange rates where we want them to be, then we can stay in school, because COVID's not going anywhere, at least not right now, and we'll be here back in the fall, and we will want people to be able to stay in school. So that was good news. And then secondly, there were some questions from CAC members about Park Forest Middle School. For obvious reasons, because of the roof issue with the odors and people experiencing illness as a result of that, and just questioning sort of, we thought this was going to happen, and it was talked about being planned, and then COVID hit, and then we haven't heard anything. And so I just thought that I would communicate to you all that that was a topic, and there's some questions about when might that timing occur, or at least a conversation to begin. So anyway, that was facilities. Do you want me to go ahead to finance?
Go ahead.
Okay. And then at finance, Randy went over the proposed final budget, and the response pretty much uniformly from all the members of the CAC were that they have concerns over a tax increase. I thought Randy did a beautiful job of explaining why this is happening, the timing of things, just a really thorough explanation that after I observed the conversation, really seemed as though they understood why this is the way it is, and Brandy did a great job. I mean, that's my summary of the CAC for finance.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Dan, school health and safety?
Yeah, there was a meeting on April 19th, and the school health and safety committee is really an interdepartmental summary of the work of a number of different departments, physical plant and food service and others, mental health, student services. In her report, Megan Shaper just reviewed the fact that the USDA waivers are expiring as of the last day of school, and talked about the fact that there might be a way that might be redirected in some way if Congress changes their mind about it. But as things stand as of April 19th, that the waivers that would provide for support through free lunches, for example, free meals at school would end. Mike Fisher provided an update about the physical plant, status of physical plant, talked about greater CO2 monitoring, and talking about the work taking place and the availability of better systems and the need to spot check areas in the school district in relation to the occurrence of CO2. Also, there's a discussion about some work this summer a walkthrough by the school resource officers in relation to safety in conjunction with the staff of the physical plant department to assess risk factors as presented in the nature of the facilities on our campuses. There was a update on the update regarding the development, the revisions to student handbooks that's taking place. Also talked about some of the reporting regarding the risk for students in terms of mental health needs and the safety, the requirements to assure their safety. We talked about the Safe to Say program and the fact that there have been close to 700 reports in Safe to Say since the onset of that program. We also discussed work in the area of suicide awareness And the fact, of course, sad, really just with profound sadness to repeat again that we have experienced suicide within the school district. And they also were acknowledging that there may be other instances where students may have attempted about which were unfamiliar, and how important it is to to be aware of those events and those experiences so that we can support those students, but also by anticipating risk, reduce the likelihood of something like that being affected in the future. Jean Canals presented an update on some of the information regarding from the BASC screening and also from the statewide PACE assessments. And what we discussed was aligning the students identified as being at risk through the BASC-3 screening and aligning that with the referral process for mental health that we've established, and trying to find out among the kids who were identified as most at risk through the BASC screening, how many of those students wound up on waiting lists where we didn't have the capacity to be able to, or find the capacity in the community to be able to support those students, and how valuable that kind of information would be, in addition to identifying those who were able to receive services. So there's that there's a wide-ranging set of discussions involving the facilities itself, and the mental health and other programs that are made available in the school district.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, technology, was there a meeting?
We haven't had a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so looking forward to future agenda planning. Our next regular meeting is June 6th, and we are scheduled to vote on the final budget at that meeting. And with that, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting to an executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we are adjourned then.